This one is a surprise, a pleasant surprise. The Focal Hadenys is the first headphone I've heard below $1,000 that sounds musically right and has relatively few distracting errors. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, audiophiles and music lovers. Today I'll be reviewing the Focal Hadenys wired headphones. I hope you enjoy this. Focal, as you probably know, is a major French manufacturer of speakers, speaker drivers, and headphones. We've reviewed and enjoyed their flagship Utopia wired headphones and the Baptiste wireless headphones. While many people will think of France as the home of wine and cheese and Michelin 3-star restaurants, France also has a long tradition in certain tech sectors. Aerospace is one of the French strengths. Think of Airbus and Falcon and SolidWorks brands. Also, audio engineering is another strength. All right, let's talk about the product. The Hadenys is a new open back design from Focal. Priced at $699 in the US, the Hadenys uses a large 40mm aluminum magnesium M-dome driver. Impedance is 26 ohms and they're relatively sensitive, so they can be driven by less than Herculean amps. Still, we used our potent reference DCS Lena headphone amp just to keep things standardized. Weight of the Hadenys is blissfully low at 0.65 pounds, which makes them among the lightest headphones with ear cups that surround the ear. We found them quite comfortable, though adjustability was limited. All right, the big thing we're here for is to talk about sound quality. And this is where the surprise comes in. A pleasant surprise. Because the Focal Hadenys is the first headphone I've heard below $1,000 that sounds musically right on most dimensions and has few, mostly small errors. As I mentioned, the Hadenys is an open back headphone. Almost all open back headphones have a bass roll-off, which is usually presented as the price you pay for lower acoustic distortion. Focal, with the Hadenys, has built an open back headphone with strong bass. Most listeners, about 80% according to research, prefer solid, maybe slightly elevated bass, and that's what the Hadenys delivers. The mid and upper bass is just slightly elevated, and response in the deep bass is solid if slightly rolled off. For reference, the well-known Sennheiser HD 650s are about 5 dB down on the Hadenys at 40 Hz. And the entire mid-bass and deep bass range of the 650s rolls off from about 100 Hz on down, whereas the Hadenys is basically flat to about 50 Hz. The critical mid-bass of the Hadenys has ample detail and punch on most recordings. But on a few recordings like Future Nostalgia from Dua Lipa, or Milton plus Esperanza from Milton Nascimento and Esperanza Spalding, the bass has a bit of blur or overhang. This blur or overhang is quite common with headphones that moderately boost the entire bass range below about 200 Hz, and I think most listeners will find it rare enough to be of no concern. But this is one area where spending 3 or 4 times as much gets you some benefits. With the Hadenys, roll-off below 50 Hz is mild, so I think they work for EDM and hip-hop with synth output sometimes in the 30 to 40 Hz range. But if this music is most or all of what you listen to, you may want to focus on closed-back headphones. The sister model to the Hadenys is the Azuris, which is closed back, but we haven't tried it. Hi-Fi Man also competes here with open-back headphones. The mid-range of the Hadenys is a delight. Many instruments in this range sound full and lively and clear. For example, I enjoyed the balance on Samantha Fish's Killer Be Kind. Her voice and guitar are well rendered, while the rhythm section is warm and punchy. A headphone like the AKG K701 can get the guitar and vocals right, but will struggle with realistic drums and bass. Epitaph from Charles Mingus was also a great listen. Each of the performers was nicely spot-lit, and despite being an older recording, the balance was satisfying. This ability of the Hadenys to spotlight performers by allowing you to hear them distinctly is a great joy and suggests the Hadenys drivers are well designed with lower than average time error or resonances. I repeatedly noticed that the Hadenys revealed low-level detail and harmonics and venue sound quite beautifully. A comparison with the Sennheiser 650s shows that the two headphones have similar mid-range balance, but the 650s are significantly more masked sounding in this range. As we transition to the upper mid-range and treble, we come to a region where I think the Hadenys has some issues, but I don't think these are as bothersome as they might sound. In the mid-treble transition region, the Hadenys response starts to rise. This adds a touch of clarity to many instruments without a sense of distortion. For example, on the Delius Cello Concerto with Jacqueline Dupré, her cello sounds slightly brighter than you might expect, but it's really more like row E versus row J seating. In the lower treble, I do detect a small peak which does two things. First, transients are emphasized in a way that makes some tracks more exciting and renders percussion transients rather well. But on some strings and vocals, there's a bit of zing. Not so much that it's unpleasant, but enough that I think you'll notice. This seems like a narrow peak because it isn't present on every voice. The mid-treble is somewhat elevated too, which, strange though it may sound, helps the Hadenys render cymbals rather smoothly and naturally. The Sennheisers, again, are less smooth here and can sound slightly splashy. Here's an overall look at the perceived frequency response of the Hadenys. Remember that plus or minus 10 dB variations are common. I should note that I used high-res tracks via the Qobuz app on the Lumen T3 streamer for all my listening, so as to avoid as much confusion as I could between recording errors and headphone errors. All right, let's summarize. The Focal Hadenys is a headphone that checks many of the boxes that attentive listeners will want to check. It especially has a mid-range clarity and openness that draws you into the music. The critical bass range is excellent and something of a breakthrough for open-back headphones. The combination of high-res mid-range and solid bass is more rare than you would think and is a reason that I'd rate the Hadenys as a major accomplishment. I hope you've enjoyed this review of the Focal Hadenys headphones. If you have, we'd invite you to check in the description for a subscription link to our weekly newsletters. They're free and you'll find lots of reviews and awards to keep you up to speed on the best audio and music. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you again soon.